3:18 a.m., Sunday, January 19th, 2022. April has just coming off the porch. To continue from what I started with yesterday, it's very real. What is happening is the free-floating anxiety, and therefore the free-floating trauma, must be maintained, but it can't be constant too much and people just pop awake. Bullshit, this isn't good, this isn't right, this isn't real. You get a psychological phenomenon called derealization, where your entire concept of reality basically crumbles because of an overstimulation of falsity. So what happens is we get these periods of what are referred to as waves of terror. And we continually have a period of tension followed by a period of relief, followed by a period of tension, followed by a period of relief. And as one of my coworkers said the other night, this is remarkably similar, if not identical, to how you train a sex slave. And the truth is, it is how you train anyone to embrace their abuse. There is a technique that was developed in the 60s and 70s by several governments' intelligence agencies referred to as trauma-based mind control. And what happens is typically you use a Hegelian dialectic, that is to say, problem, reaction, solution. You create a problem so that people react to it, so that they will accept your solution. It is a simplified version of what develops those four-step processes into MFP. The trauma-based mind control technique effectively acts the same way. The side effects of this are complex post-traumatic stress disorder, a recent addition to the psychological vernacular. However, it's a thing that a lot of people have been dealing with for a very long time. That is part of the thing I mentioned in the previous video about free-floating traumas, random, sourceless traumas, which you can't cope with if you don't know where it comes from. These kind of things specifically render people susceptible to suggestion, to that idea of, I can make all of this craziness go away if you just do as I say. The reality is that never works. It is never true. Only abusers use this technique. Now, if you are in a relationship or have an agreement with somebody, or however it is that you're doing, that this is something on the lines of, like, say, a sex slave. A sex slave in this sense is a person who has chosen to be dominated, not somebody who is being trafficked. Just so we're clear. The waves of terror are part of the process. Learning to recognize them, learning to not stress quite so hard on them helps. It helps you surf rather than get carried by the wave. What I'm finding personally the difficulty in it is trying to not get too wound up about government mandates right now. You know, what's all the stuff you've been talking about? Well, here's the thing. The government proposes mandates, tries to institute mandates. These mandates are flatly illegal and unconstitutional. They know these will get struck down, but in the meantime, they create that wave of terror, of the panic of people going, well, what are we supposed to do? And eventually what happens is that wave gets released, and the relief comes when the government is told they can't do it, and the people relax. But the problem is, the purpose of the mandates is not to enforce an illegal or unconstitutional mandate. The point is to convince corporations, companies, businesses, private individuals to go ahead and adopt these policies. And then when they back off the law, the policies are still in place. And the "but my private company" comes into play. Where it seems, and this is just a guess without any real information, where it seems like in the case of my employment situation, the lawfare against a company, a national or global corporation attempting to institute rules akin to these mandates is that in the state in which I live, there is a law that has been passed, not an edict, not a mandate, not a decree. The bicameral state legislation passed a law that the governor signed. It is state law. And under states' rights, the state law holds where the government is not specifically granted an enumerated power. And an enumerated power, by definition, means a specifically named and worded power. So if the Constitution does not specifically enumerate that the federal government and its inspection and enforcement agencies have the enumerated right to enforce medical mandates and experimental procedures on people with or without informed consent for the sake of public safety and or national security, unless it is specifically worded that way in the Constitution or an amendment thereof, the states have the right to override anything the federal government does in that department, because the 10th Amendment says any powers not specifically enumerated to the federal government shall be those of the state. This is why my boss versus the company that he works for is taking place at a state Supreme Court level, because I believe the argument is most likely to be something to the effect of, you cannot force me to do things by company policy that violate my state's law. I'm pretty sure that's what it is, just as a guess. That's my hunch. I could be totally wrong. But that seems to be the avenue. So this is why it's important to pay attention to who your state governor is. This is why it's important to make sure to primary whoever your state governor is at the next election, if they're not moving in this direction. Whether that is a rhino Republican that is not actually doing anything to help, or if it is a dipshit Democrat, a real screwball. Every Democratic governor, with the exception of Whitmer, although she got quite draconian, she abused her power significantly. She should have been taken from office. Only now does she defy the mandates when she realizes it's going to destroy her state if she keeps playing with that team. This is why subversion is important. On social media, we can present ideas sarcastically. Titania McGrath is a great example of subversiveness. When it comes to it, the actual mandate itself, it appears that it's probably not going to pass, except for healthcare workers. Unfortunately, at this time, what this means is that you've got healthcare workers who are capable of understanding that it's bullshit. They have to choose whether or not to keep their career, for which they probably went to an expensive and extensive length of college to get. And the other half are going to be the ones who just somehow managed to pass the most difficult courses that college has to offer, anatomy and physiology, on their way to becoming a registered nurse and not just somebody with a nursing degree. These people ought to know better, and some of them will not. Some of the doctors will not. Some of them have sold out. But they are in the medical field. If the medical field is deteriorating, all they can do is find work elsewhere. perhaps grant advice without practicing medicine in a more private capacity. For everybody else, find out what your state laws are regarding the matter. Did your state pass something that says if they pass illegal mandates, we will not enforce them and we will not allow them to come in and enforce them? Part of what that means is that they could have this OSHA standard, and the state you live in can say, we will arrest any federal officers, whether it's an inspector, whether it is law enforcement on a federal level. We will prevent them from coming in, and we will stop them from attempting to enforce unconstitutional laws and mandates. Hopefully, things like lawsuits against companies for forcing business owners to violate state law can be won. Hopefully, these state laws that are specifically instructing the federal government to stay completely out of that which is not their enumerated right to enforce, things can function still. If not, things are going to get worse for a lot of people. I think that most likely the best tactic will be if somebody from the company comes to find out what their stance is, what their plan is, and make sure if they decide that they're going to throw the book at you, that you let them know exactly what kind of a brown shirt, Stasi wannabe, Nazi, whatever you want to call them. Find a way to make them look racist. Put them on blast on video and social media. See if you can get somebody's name. Let them know that if they're going to be like that, they done picked the wrong job. And that they made their choice. And by making that choice, they are now culpable for the consequences. And hopefully there will be people that come in and say, everything looks good here, check, 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 no matter what. But if it's going to be something where, well, I work for corporate, it's not my problem, it's whatever. Eventually, enough of those people will come up missing to where they will be unable to effectuate any of this. And the best part will be when questioned, literally everyone will not know anything or have seen anything. I believe this is what we're coming to, is that there are more people who are awake and aware than there are of the new fascists. And it is going to be possible to disappear the new fascists. And I believe this is the way forward at some point. In the meantime, we subvert. And arm yourself mentally for the possibility that may come a time to actually grease some real Nazis, some real fascists, some real authoritarian human rights violators. I saw a fascinating video of a cafe owner in Queensland, Australia, refusing to answer the police's questions about masks and vaccines, etc., and asking them repeatedly to leave. And as this is going on, the entire cafe rises from their chairs, turns on their devices, and begins recording and demanding these people's names and badge numbers. And once they're given those, the people begin chanting, "Get out now, leave the store," things like that. Here's subversion, taking their motto, like when a cop says, "Protect and serve," and you go, "Bro, what are you protecting? Who do you serve," right? Well, in Queensland, apparently their motto is to serve with honor, or with honor we serve. And so they're saying, what honor and whom do you serve? One of the cops actually tried to say, well, I actually serve the Senate and the whatever, and we're here to discuss the directives. And the owner says, directives are not laws. You're here you're supposed to enforce the law, and you took an oath. Who do you serve? And eventually the crowd got fairly rowdy, and the cops were making threats to the people about, you guys are getting, you're a little up, I may have to ticket you. And the guy's like, no, man, I'm just speaking to be heard over the crowd. All these other people are here too, though. Eventually, what is going to happen is in places like that, a cop is going to try to arrest someone, and people are going to be so fed up with it, they're just going to mob the cops and haul them off. Where I'm at, thankfully, I don't think that's going to be an issue. But there are places where I think that it would be 100% in line that some of them folks get dragged down an old road out in the middle of nowhere by the neck, and, bodies left for the dingoes, as it were. Because like I said, eventually there will be times where enough of these people will just vanish and nobody will have anything to say about it. Did you see anything? Nope, I didn't see anything. Did you? Nope, I didn't see anything. Does anybody here know what happened? No, man, we don't know what happened. We have no idea. Who is that? We don't know who that is. And yes, it's terrifying. But as I said at the end of the last video, it's real. This is real. This is not something that just holding signs up and marching is going to end. This is not something that voting is going to end, because the people that are in power are going to try and stay in power. This means they're going to themselves subvert your ability to choose your leadership. This is real. I don't really have much else on it other than that. I wanted to follow up a little bit on it from last night. And once again, yes, this is real. Arguing with people online is not the point. And if they don't want to be educated, don't try any harder than you have to. Just don't. Just don't. Don't consider them a lost cause necessarily, but only educate people who are genuine about it, and not the trolls that lure you in. You learn to recognize those people. Oftentimes they will be someone you know, and they will continually try and be like, oh, well, tell me more. In person, those are the people I'd like to hit with a brick. People treat me like that all the time. That was a way that people used to troll me, knowing that I was a compulsive talker, and they try and get me started. And after about 2 or 3 times, I'd be like, no, I'm not playing your game. Oh, what do you mean? What do you mean game? What? I'm curious. You can tell from that tone of voice, that's how they'll say it. So this is why you don't do it online at all. Do not attempt to convince or sway anyone online. However, in the real world, where they have to look at you face to face, you can cite facts. You can be like, no, man, it's right here. Check it out on your phone. And if they want to act up and act out and go crazy or whatever, you can always start recording them and make them famous. Eventually, everyone who can wake up will wake up. The people who cannot wake up will be the only ones remaining. They will start trouble, and those of us who are awake will quell the trouble. Eventually, I have a feeling in Australia, they're simply going to be like, why are all of our police the missing persons? Our cops can't even do missing persons reports because the only people missing are the cops. I think that's what's going to happen there. The other thing is what a lot of them have been saying, is that Nuremberg 2.0 is coming. And every single enforcer, every single inspector, anyone, whether it's, in our case, the CDC, OSHA, even some of the businesses and their policies, there is going to be a reckoning. There is going to be comeuppance. There is going to be some sort of change, because this building back better thing is probably not going to work out. I don't think they have what it takes to get it completely off the ground. They will attempt to wreck everything, and from those ashes we will build something back. And yeah, it will hopefully be better. But in the meantime, this is a very real thing. And there is going to come a point where words are not going to be usable. There will be no use to words. And as they say, actions speak louder than words. Eventually, the threat to the rest of us must be taken care of in a way that unfortunately comes across as very, very, very similar to that which we are fighting against. The difference is the people that want to protect the world from mass psychosis, from bad ideas that lead to harming others, that have been deceptively and manipulatively, dishonestly promoted and pushed to the point of attempting to fake that they are popular. It's not the same thing as trying to enforce unconstitutional laws in the name of some emergency that can empirically be found to not be what they're saying it is. The difference is the honesty factor. You've got honest people who are done with being lied to and controlled, versus dishonest people who want to continue lying and controlling, or in some cases are simply not able to do anything but that. So I'll leave it at that. This is real. This is very real. And some of us are going to be impacted more so than others. This is very real. Did you know that in Australia right now, they are making it illegal to assist people who are unable to eat or work because of their refusal to follow the mandates? Did you know that about 85 years ago, in a country in Europe, it was made illegal to aid or assist anyone who had been ordered, rounded up, put onto train cars and sent to camps? That if you were hiding any of them, are you following me on this? Are you looking at which side of history we're talking about here? The people who risked everything to help others because they were being persecuted, rounded up, genocided, they were the criminals in that system. But the reality is they were heroes. In Australia right now, they're attempting to criminalize heroism in the same exact way. Because state by state, they are making changes to their mandates that are saying, if you don't get the procedure, you must stay inside your house. And going to work or going shopping for food is no longer a valid excuse to leave. And it's illegal to help those people when they need food or money. This is very real.